今は遠いリチャード・ノイトラの世界。簡潔な造形と味わい深い図面。建築家とコラボレータ
ー。34. The Theater Building.
劇場ビル。
Summed up from Thoughts by Richard Neutra. Anthropologically speaking, the place of show goes back to the dung adobe grandstand facing an arena in front of the Zulu kraal, and further to the dramatic ritual hill of Stonehenge. But physiologically speaking, acting up is a downright primary life function, and, strangely, goes much further back than does its counterpart, organized watching. 60 or perhaps 100 million years ago, the show and the show-off started. The acting and the acting up is part of animal biology, as function of it. The courtship dance of those birds there, the flamingos in the colorful ballet of theirs, the peacock swinging a gorgeous performance with his tail spread round, are billed for other millions of repeats which will never bore them. They have no stage director, spotlights, or often not even a she-peacock to impress. That bird will do it for a casual zoo visitor and stop him in his track past the cage. The physiology of the human being placed into architecture has long been my never-ending subject, and the setting to take in a show is a grand example for it. The theater space, according to the Greek vocable theatron, is a seeing or viewing space, a spectatorium, but it is also an auditorium where things are being heard. Beyond this it is, way below the consciousness level of the theatergoer, space, brimful of other sensorial offerings to millions of receptors. Because we live no longer in a time when architects catered to clients of just 5 senses. The theatergoer finds himself also in a thermal space where the temperature starts rising after the curtain rises, with hundreds of human beings heating it, from act to act. He finds himself in a space of humidity or dryness, with his skin senses watching his own surface evaporation, while he watches the play. He is enveloped in a breathing space with air movements, oxygen supplied, and tiredness chemicals exhaled by him, self and his fellows. He is in the midst of a space in which he turns and tilts his head with his acceleration sense in the inner ear stimulated, and so very cognizant of the space. All his inner senses, the intestinal and muscular senses, the interoceptives and proprioceptives, are activated, pleased or offended, while he sits, fitting his body into a theater chair all through a performance, watching an illuminative color scheme, which might slightly irritate his stomach, or may exhilarate, and again depress, his organic entity as a whole, just as does the clarity or fuzziness of auditive reception, the low or high humidity, or undersupply of breathing air. Even the slight smell of the carpet padding in the aisles and, we hope, the controlled odor level, accruing where humanity is piled together, be it in Naples or New York, have their subconscious role. All the drama fan knows is that he is watching Hamlet in his despair, and actively follows with his whole body and soul, up to the last act, the exciting sword play of the dueling scene. But there are many unconscious processes which the architect of the theater can stimulate or undersupply, which may blunt the effectiveness of even the most wonderful stagecraft. The drama starts with the dramatist's skillful exposition. Then, from the first, second, and third acts, the curve rises to a climax, and finally it sinks to a fineness, never to be forgotten. On the other hand, the physiological receptivity of the theater audience could be shown by quite another graph to be highest at the beginning, and to fluctuate down to a minimum when the senses have been exposed for a long time. Still another graph could show various fatigue phenomena, first absent, but later beginning to creep in, and up, rise, and finally become too substantial for further intake. All this is, as hinted, a physiological approach to the dramatic experience, and an approach to understand how different and distinct the appeals are to our organic being, which comprises the most intricate, interlinked brain and nervous organic system, while we may believe that we are merely looking and listening. Incidentally, more bodily participation of the looker-listener, even if it is only vicarious and in traces of innervation, makes for intensified soul participation. It is psychosomatic. And the architect can help it if he can design the stage elastically widened. In theaters I designed, the stage can be very much broadened so that the onlooker is surrounded by the Battle of Philippi, or, it can on other occasions be greatly narrowed, so that he finds himself, calmed down, in the tent of Brutus, listening to the lyrical notes of a lute, played just when, with lights faded, the ghost of Caesar is to descend into the confined space of an anxious soul, before that decisive battle. The objective constancy of the scene as conceived by the director must be thus supported by the architect to prevail over all special perspectives from all poorer seats and side views. When I was a teenager, I watched Richard XI talking to his mirror image in the Court Theatre of Vienna. My memory does not tell me where I sat, but I remember the resplendently directive shell of the theatre room, and I could believe I sat in the center of the first row, only I know for sure that I could not have paid for that ticket. And when I come to think about it, I could swear that I had only a standing space on the side of the fourth gallery, but I shall never forget what I feel now I saw right before me. An impressive serpent of luminosity in one of my designs centrally waves very dynamically toward the middle of the stage from the middle point of a broadly sweeping scene illumination balcony in the rear of the spectatorship. The interestingly warped ceiling of several tiers is irradiated, for increasing rapture of forward-looking. This attitude also lasts and is intensified when all the house lights rheostatic ally are dimmed off, and conversational noise ceases, to mark the end of the interact. Not only eyes, also ears, can feel an almost magnetic attraction forward. The visual ceiling is not a solid ceiling. It is a meshwork, physically independent of the auditively directive ceiling, which is calculated to guide an optimum of reverberations to every seat, at the side or in the middle, front or back. The rear portions of the side wall consist of batteries of parallelepipeds with triangular cross-sections, and with each of their three faces different in absorption and reverberation characteristics. Just as push buttons change the illuminative mood during a scene, so can this auditive coloring be similarly regulated, and acoustical illumination can also be rheostatic ally heightened while that battle scene reaches its height, or while that ghost speaks his last lines, never to be forgotten. There is no reason why, with our technology of today, room acoustics should be static during drama, and only visual illumination dynamic. All our means can and shall feed into a happy vitalization of body and soul, into fused psychosomatic satisfactions which stay with us in our memory, and so identify our life. This is the aim of the architect in all assignments given to him.